So I'll record this session for those at home as well. So what we're going to be having a quick look at today, first of all, with the building rules consent, like planning, we've got 3 projects that we're doing. Unlike planning, is you have to be drawing details for each of those. So I just wrote up a quick summary of which what details are required for each project. Do you guys want to move around just a little bit more?
I can see.
You can see?
Yeah.
So, project 1, that's Shepherd's Hill Road, Bellevue Heights. You've got to do wet area details. You've got to do window and veranda details, footings detail, eaves detail, bracing plan. Bracing plan, super simple, that won't take very long at all. I'll explain bracing to you so you can understand actually the information that's going on there. I think it's important if you understand all that information, but the actual production of the bracing plan does not take very long at all. It's just adding some lines and some text onto a floor plan that exists already, and you strip that floor plan right back so you don't have any more information on there than what's really required. Wet area details takes time. Window and veranda details takes time. Footings detail should not take you too long to do. All of those details you'll be doing by just using detail lines. So you'll probably cut a section through the building to help as a guide for relationships of that slope, etc., and the ceiling where everything fits, but then you'll end up getting rid of that behind, and you'll draw everything up in detail lines. That's really the quickest and easiest way of going about it. On attendance day, we've got, I'll scoot down to the bottom, we've got a landscaper coming, a private certifier coming, we've got a builder from a take here, and an energy consultant, so somebody who's doing energy ratings. Now, what you are required to do is you're required to ask questions of these professionals. Now, you don't actually have to ask questions that only align to our projects. If you have some specific questions you'd like to ask of these people that don't necessarily align to our projects, that's still fine, because you probably have plenty of questions, such as, I don't know, you might want to ask a private certifier to what extent do we have, what information needs to be required, what's required for justifying a performance solution as opposed to a deemed to satisfy. Or you might have some curly questions for a private certifier, or about building classification or something like that. But some other aspects that are important to us for private certifier, well, they'll be talking about bushfire prone areas anyhow, so probably that everything is going to be covered there for you, and that's really the only thing that we have to consider with our project 1. Landscaper, for project 3, for planning approval, you've got to specify all of the plantings for the site, so you've got to do a landscaping plan for that. They're going to want to know, or what you're going to want to know is, are there any specific trees that Adelaide City Council want to have? Do they have any preference? Are there any trees which are problematic that shouldn't be included on sites? You could ask what sort of preparation is required for trees, but have a think about these questions you could ask. So the landscaper, they're probably a good person to ask. That's really for planning approval, but still ask plenty of questions about landscaper around that project 3. So have a look at project 3 and have a think about those. Builder, what we're doing for our project 1 is we've got window and veranda details and then eaves detail. Now, on the Learn page for project 1, there is plenty of information there about the eaves detail. There's bits and pieces of information about the footings detail, and I'll go into all of that. I'll also have a chat to you guys about our window and veranda details, but you might want to chat to the builder about that. because I've prepped him to say they're going to be talking about eaves details and veranda details for this project. So because this is due a week after the attendance day, there's still time for you to ask questions of the builder on that day about these specific things. So by all means, get to work on them now, but there might be some things you go, oh, I'm not really quite sure about that. And if you want, you can even print some things off to PDF and say, and that can go up on the screen with the builder there and say, is this correct? Should I be changing something?
Okay.
So now for project 2, you're doing wet areas once again. Having covered them here for project 1, that's what we're going to cover today. There's probably going to be no surprises there. Also, stair cross sections. There might be some questions for private certifier in regards to stairs, but probably not. You're probably going to just work through the NCC with that. And lift cross section, that information is actually supplied to you primarily. Plumbing, we don't have a plumber coming this time for attendance day. I can cover plumbing with you about that. Natural ventilation and lighting. Look, you might have some questions of a private certifier, but that's all fairly well spelled out in the NCC. Anyhow, for project 3, you got to be looking at roof structure, wall structure, and floor structure. Now, they are really good questions for our builder on that day, but I'm also not expecting that you'll really get into project 3 enough by the time we have our attendance day for asking those questions of the builder. So, yeah, look, if you want to, you can, but I'm not expecting. So I can help out with all that stuff in a couple months' time. Underfloor heating. So you've got to specify underfloor heating for this is a commercial property, so this is NCC Volume 1. It's probably a really good idea to ask the private certifier about things relating to underfloor heating. Say, if I specify underfloor heating in the building, are there any other special requirements that I have to abide by? Are there any things that you're looking for in underfloor heating? Also, the private certifier, you might say, we have to do a life safety plan for this building showing distances to exits. Is there specific information that you want to see on that, or fire safety plan? You might ask private certifier questions around those as well. So have a look at those. But another thing, given that project 3, a commercial building, you might want to ask the energy consultant how they go about doing certification energy ratings on commercial buildings, and ask them what are the differences between energy ratings on commercial buildings and private residences. That's probably a really good one to do. And say, if we want to design an energy efficient commercial building, what are the most important considerations for that? So these are the people we've got coming in on attendance day. You're going to have to supply me 5 questions
For each of them?
for each of the projects. So
No, not for each.
no, not for
consultant.
each of those. No.
Okay.
For each of those consultants, we're really limited for time. We've got you 3, plus 2 other students that are internal, and then 4 others. So we've got 9 students in total. There's really only got to be time for you to ask 1 question of each. All you have to do on that attendance day is ask 3 questions. So if you don't have a question for the builder, then don't. Or if you don't have a question for the landscaper, then don't ask a question. There's really only going to be time for you to ask 3 questions in total throughout that whole end of the day.
Okay.
If we end up having more time, we'll then fire away, ask more questions. It's a great time just to do that. But the bare minimum requirements is that you have to ask 3 questions on that day of 3 different consultants.
Are they all there at the same time?
No. So I'm not sure about the exact timing of who's coming in at what time. So it's after lunch. So from 1 o'clock through to 4:30. What's that?
4:30.
4:30. Yeah, 1 o'clock to 4:30. We've got the different consultants coming in, and so what was that? That's 3.5 hours for 4 people. So we're looking at about 45 minutes each, plus a little bit of changeover time. It's not only our class, but also one of Merrin's classes who are going to be in there asking some questions as well. Yeah, you've got to be fairly upfront in getting your questions in and going, hey, I've got this. So you've got to sort of force your way in there a little bit, but be prepared. Also, if you can supply your questions to me before the day as well, that'd be fantastic. So the ones that you're going to be asking on the day, supply them to me, and then and I can help. It'd be good for me to be able to vet them a little bit or to organise things a little bit rather than things go too off track during the day. So you've got to have those 3 questions prepared for attendance day, but then for each of these projects, what you have to supply in Learn are 5 questions that relate to each of those projects. So 5 questions you would ask of an external consultant. That can happen any time between now and week 18. The important thing for now is think about those questions for attendance day. Have a look at those projects that are coming up and think about what you'd really like to ask in relation to those, or think about anything else, just general interest that will really help you professionally with those private certifieds or other professionals.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's attendance day, and I'll just stop that recording at that point.
Yeah.